Good morning. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's symposium. This is an exciting day. I've heard the women planning this for so long. It's exciting to be here. And the greatest problem they had was more of you wanted to come. That really shows us that women want to speak up, they want to learn, and they want to share their voice. So thank you very much for coming. It's been my honor to work with these amazing women on a regular basis, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say as well. Sorry, they have notes for me, but I'm not very good at that. I'm really excited that you're here. But Edmonton has a long and rich history of incredibly strong women who wanted to change the world. Starting with the 5 courageous and idealistic Albertan women who stepped onto the world stage to challenge the Canadian Constitution in 1929 that said that only qualified persons, meaning men, could be appointed to the Senate. By insisting that women be fully recognized as persons in the fullest legal sense of the word, the famous 5 set a stirring example of leadership that changed history. And for nearly 100 years, the work of Emily Murphy, Irene Parlby, Nellie McClung, Louise McKinney, and Henrietta Muir Edwards has continued to inspire and empower generations of women. Well, we've come a long way since the Persons case of 1929, but as you know, we still have a long way to go in achieving gender equality for women, particularly in our city. It was really interesting when I was looking at the research. It was really funny to see, or sad to see, that Nellie McClung fought for wage equity for women. That she was continually looking at how women weren't paid well. And she would say, if we looked what it took for a woman to live a full and decent life, it's probably double what she's paid now. And she was advocating for women's wage equity. Some things haven't changed yet, but we're working on them. In 2014, we were labeled as Edmonton, the worst place to live in Canada if you were a woman, according to the Canadian Policy for Policy Alternatives. I don't know about you. Last year, we rose to second last of the 25 cities. And I'm sure that report frustrated you like it did me. Yes, we have work to do on several fronts, including wage equity, violence against women, and leadership. But I choose not to be defined by that report. And women in Edmonton are alive and well, aren't we? In fact, we are healthier and more educated than men in the city, according to that report. I'm excited about our future in Edmonton. Together, we're changing it for the better. I'm incredibly blessed and excited to be spearheading the Women's Initiative with Mayor Don Iveson. He is truly a strong advocate for women in our city, and you're going to hear from him next, and you'll hear all about that. But we also have a council who's very supportive of women. And I appreciate that Councilor McKean's here today, our own Tweety bird. Well, we got tweeting, I don't know. It just demonstrates one more person that's excited to see women succeed. When women succeed, we all succeed. The city of Edmonton has a clear vision. We want to be a vibrant, connected, safe, sustainable, and welcoming city. And a city that's 50% women, that includes each and every one. So there is work to do. The goal of the Women's Initiative is to ensure that women's rights, issues, and opinions are represented fairly and equally. And the scope of the Women's Initiative continues to evolve as we move forward. But we've accomplished some things so far, and it's really exciting to see the establishment of the Women's Advisory Voice of Edmonton, and you've met some of the members today. They are a group of women of different social and cultural backgrounds, united by the common goal to engage in dialogue, like they are today, and to advance the status of women in Edmonton. They provide guidance to City Council, and they use a gender lens to inform city policies, priorities, and decisions. Now, often people say, what is a gender lens? And I'll give you a really quick example. How many of you in this room who wear high heels have walked on the city sidewalks and have got your heel in one of those grates, okay? Good. I believe it was designed by someone that did not wear high heels. Now, if someone who wore high heels had been involved, they would say those are too wide. And then they put those footprints on them. Have you ever tried to walk on those footprints in high heels? They're too wide. You can't do it in high heels. Now you know why we need a gender lens. It affects every area of our city where women are involved. It's important for us to understand different perspectives. And I was really excited to have WAVE come and present to City Council's Transportation Committee on Transit Safety. They represented the women of the city very well. And they were able... and they were able to lead the charge. And today we have an anti-sexual harassment campaign and many other initiatives, including those little stop buttons that now we hope are more user-friendly. It's important to hear those voices. It's important to understand from a woman's perspective. That's why WAVE is so valuable. Currently, they're helping the city on our child care policy. It's important for us to understand how everyday women are impacted by our policies. That's the work that they do. But if we're going to walk the walk and talk the talk, we need to lead by example. So one of the things we've done in the city is to look at our corporation. And out of the desire to be a leader and to champion women's issues, we also have an internal committee, Women at the City. An acting city manager, Linda Cochran, is one of the co-sponsors with me on that. And really, it's an idea of bringing the women's perspective to the city. And we have a representation from every branch on the committee, and they work on issues like mentorship. They promote some great events, and they've had some phenomenal speakers. No, Linda and I and Jackie. They've had horrendous speakers. But they're also looking at policies that affect women and how that we as a city need to adjust and change. It's exciting work. So I want to thank them very much for the work that they do, because it's essential for our city to move forward on all fronts. Of course, within all this work lies the ultimate goal, remains to challenge the status quo of women's equality and to inspire positive change. Now, we're also looking at different ways for women to participate in politics, and in case you haven't heard, I'm the only woman on council. But we're working at changing that. One of the ways we're doing that is we do have a mentorship program that we've created where women understand what it is to be a councilor, to be the mayor, and hopefully provide them some education that they can learn and they can understand what that's all about. And that they'll choose to run. Now, it's a phenomenal program, and as we continue to move forward, I hope more of you are engaged in it. Excuse me. But I think the real secret lies beyond the program. Research says that more women will run if they're encouraged to run. So what we need to do, what we need to do is to ask people to run, encourage them to run. So I'd like to encourage each and every one of you to consider running in all wards except Ward 2. Oh, and Scott says Ward 6 as well. We need gender equality, so not 6. But really, we really need to encourage women that we know can do it. Women seem to underestimate their abilities, and we know you have some phenomenal skills and we need them at the table. So I really want to encourage you, if you want more women to run in politics, run or encourage someone to run. 20 years ago, Canada was ranked first for its level of progress towards gender equity by the United Nations. But that progress has nearly ground to a halt. It is estimated that if Canada continues on our current path, we will not close the gender gap for 228 years, more than 2 centuries from now. Closing this gender equality gap is a matter of working on many fronts at once. And I'm really glad to see colleagues from different cities and from the province, because it's work that we're all going to have to do. Economic security is linked to personal security and vice versa. Women cannot escape domestic violence if they don't have sufficient means to pay for food and shelter. Long-term health problems and disability are in turn linked to lower levels of economic well-being and increased levels of vulnerability to violence. The lack of accessible, affordable childcare and flexible work schedules will also continue to affect women's economic security. Obviously, there is work to do. It's not work that we do in isolation. As I said, we do it with the province, and we do it with our colleagues across the province. We're also looking at some different initiatives within the city, and we have a new initiative, the Gender-Based Violence Prevention Initiative, which I'm working on with Councilor Zoe. It's about changing the conversation in Edmonton. Unfortunately, our rates of police-reported sexual assault are among the highest in the country. We also have higher rates of domestic violence. We must change that. This is not a women's issue, it's a community challenge. We're all part of that conversation. So what can we do? What can I do? First of all, I'd like to share with you a little bit about my story. Some of you have heard it before. Please bear with me. I'm the oldest of 6 children, and during my lifetime, my parents fostered over 60 children. Naturally, when I got married and had children, I thought I'd foster children too. But I had a problem. You have to give them back. And when the children left, my heart was broken and I mourned for them. I asked my mom, so how do you do it? 60 children. Why did you do it? You have to understand her story. She was one of 9 children who was found abandoned in an apartment, and they never knew what happened to her mother, if she left or if she met with foul play. They scattered the children to various foster homes, and she ended up with one with her 3 sisters on a farm because they needed help. She was never adopted or treated as one of the family. So when I asked my mom that question, she said, everyone is valuable, and they would know that they were loved even for a short period of time, and hopefully that would carry through their whole life. She changed her world one child at a time. I've never forgotten that. Everyone is important, and I can make a difference. For me, I stopped fostering, but I found ways to speak out on behalf of children and others. At school councils, community leagues, nonprofit organizations that serve children and families. I was among the team that started Kids Cottage in Edmonton. I found my voice, eventually as a school trustee and now as a city councilor. But we all have a voice. We all have a different story or perspective, and we need to speak up. We need to speak up against injustice, speak up on issues that matter to us, speak up for this and future generations. I don't want it to be 228 years before we have gender equity. I want my daughter and my future grandchildren to know that gender equity is not something to look at, it's something we have. But what stops us? It's usually life. We get too busy, or things happen to us, or we feel, or maybe things don't happen to us the way we wanted them. So feel we can't say because, well, if you only knew me, you know I shouldn't be speaking up on this. So what? We all have stuff. Now, sometimes people use their circumstances to motivate them. You find mothers, fathers that have child with disability become the greatest advocate they have. You don't have to have a child with a disability to be an advocate. Sometimes we can use those things to motivate us. I do. I lost a brother to suicide, another to a drunk driver, and a family member who is affected by domestic violence. We all have stuff. But what's important is that we use our voice. But it's your choice. You don't have to use your voice, but when you use it, recognize it will matter. Maybe no one thought of the idea you have. Maybe you have the answer we're all looking for. Maybe you're the only person in that crisis. You're the only person that someone in a crisis is going to talk to. I was talking one day after I attended a course on domestic violence with my hairdresser. And I was telling her all I learned and how so many people don't speak up because they don't know what to say. And she turned to me and said, I do that. I know several people that have come and sat in my chair, and I'm pretty sure they were a victim of domestic violence. But I didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say. So we talked about what she could say. She says, I'm going to do that. Next time I'm going to speak up. Maybe I can help. Maybe we can all help. You can make a difference. We all need to work together. We all need to speak up. And together, we're going to change this city. Now, I want to end with a saying that I found from Nellie McClum, one of the famous five. Now, it's not in my vernacular, but you'll understand the meaning at the end. Women had to first convince the world that they had souls, and then that they had minds. And then it came to this matter of a political entity, and the end is not yet. Never retreat, never explain, never apologize, and get the thing done and let them howl. Thank you.